Hello again, and we're back at the World Export Development Forum on this very interesting day where we are talking, among other things, about artificial intelligence and its impact on trade. I have with us Professor Dekai, who has taken just-in-time management to new levels, flying from around the globe to be with us today. Robots, AI robots, are they going to take over the world? Is this really what we have to worry about, or are there deeper questions?
No, there are much deeper questions. Look, the Hollywood stories are entertaining. Skynet's going to come destroy humanity, but actually the big existential risk with AI is that humanity is going to destroy humanity if we continue to allow the AIs that power social media and recommendation and search engines to polarize us. The big danger that we've already been seeing is that the AIs that are deciding what you and I see whenever we Google something, whenever YouTube or Amazon makes a recommendation to us, whenever we open our Twitter or our TikTok, they're not just deciding what do we see, what are the 50 things we see today. They're deciding which billions of new things today we're not seeing. They're deciding which hundreds of billions of items from the entire past of the internet we're not seeing. And the question is, how are those AIs deciding that? Because today, the way they're deciding that is, what do you want to see? Because the more I show you what you want to see, the more I make profits from advertising or from selling you things or getting you to watch another movie or whatever. And that is causing us to only understand things that we already want to see, and not to ever see things that are coming from someone else's perspective. And that, is something that is causing polarization, because every group of people is only seeing what they want to see and not having a complete picture.
Exactly. So if I'm looking at flowers, I'm only going to see flowers. And if it's about flowers, it's okay. If it's about something else, maybe it's not.
Sure.
Now, I can't do something about this, but you've been working to influence policy behind the scenes. Do you have any recommendations, particularly in developing countries, where they can leapfrog trade? How can they influence policies to make sure that we have artificial intelligence that benefits the average person?
I think one of the things that developing countries can do is they can point to the fact that we have already seen documented in testimonies in the Congress and the parliaments in Europe of the effect of AI in polarizing people, the effect of AI in feeding people things that are not necessarily healthy, and to apply a little bit of pressure on this, because this is one of those problems that doesn't have an easy magic solution, right? On the one hand, you have questions of free speech, free media, and a free market, and on the other hand, you have questions of, clearly we've already seen that if you just take a profit-based approach to this, that it doesn't result in a balanced, healthy diet of information that is well-rounded and gives a full picture rather than a tunnel-visioned, narrow slice of what you want to see. And once the developing countries start articulating that at an international level, that will help us to drive policy makers and think tanks to addressing these things in a healthier way. And that might depend very much, it might well depend on the general population becoming aware of these problems.
And for that they need education.
Conversations, being educated, having public awareness campaigns, and coming to grapple with these things, have public conversations, and create a new social consensus about how do we tackle this thorny trade-off so that we can actually make realistic guidelines for the companies that manage our AIs.
Okay. Let me ask you a completely different question, more macro. Artificial intelligence and trade. How can they use trade, the small businesses who have to enter new markets in tough times, they have to get themselves certified, they need to track their inventory in new ways, they need to get across through trade corridors, new supply chains deviate from right to left. Where does artificial intelligence fit into this for them?
I think, it breaks down into two steps. Like right now, what are the AI technologies that they can help that you can use to help themselves. And that might include things like large language models that help them to write the things that they need to go through various certification processes. It will still need humans, but maybe it can be more efficiently done with AI. They can use existing AI systems to help to improve the way they source and build their supply chains. But going forward, through the near future, I think that AIs will help things like the supply chain problems become much more effective. And today, optimizing your supply chain requires a lot of work. Even with Alibaba and so forth, it takes a lot of work to figure out what is my supply chain. It's not that easy to navigate. And AIs in the near future, I believe, will be deployed to help very simply, like if you can just ask, how do I source such and such at these kinds of price points and so forth, the AIs will help to reduce the amount of labor that it takes to do that, which right now only larger companies can afford.
Mm-hmm. But there's a but, which is those systems are only as good as how you feed them and what you put into them. So if they ask those kinds of questions, how do they know what's coming out is reliable for them?
Excellent question. And this is where I think a lot of international collaboration is useful. What you want is suppliers in your supply chain to have ways of feeding what they're doing into the AIs that are giving information about supply chain, right? And you want to enable that. And so this is something where in a developing country, you still have people that are producing goods from sheep wool or something. Then how do you get them to get their information into the online systems that AIs can read?
So, right, we're in Mongolia. They do make sheep wool. What are the kind of partnerships that are needed? So is it between universities, business associations, small businesses, IT parks, digital ministry, economy ministry? How should that work in your mind?
This is a multi-stakeholder problem, and I think it's going to require guidance because it's an infrastructural thing. So you definitely want government involvement to make sure that the communications infrastructure is there, that the connectivity is there, and also that the soft part.
Connectivity is first.
Connectivity is first, and we've already been seeing that connectivity is now much easier to obtain with mobile infrastructure that does not require the level of investment that previous fixed line infrastructure required for telecom. And so that, I think, is a hopeful step forward to make accessible to everybody, inexpensive devices that are constantly connected. But we also need, in addition to that, to make sure that the methods for inputting what you're producing that you would like to make available in supply chains are localized, that they're easily accessible, that the user interface is easy for someone who is not an IT person to use.
We just had a panel session on powering digital transformation with local innovation. And we've also known that the bigger organizations out there, the bigger companies, they have a lot of lockhold in the market in many ways. Do you have any advice for local innovators in the digital space?
So take advantage of the latest AI technologies. One thing that we're seeing now with large language models, with generative AI, is that they are able to write code by themselves. You just tell it in human language what you want it to do, and it writes code for you. And you might have to double check it, but it's much faster and much cheaper than having to code everything by hand. And so for a local, small, medium enterprise, it's much less of an investment already today to build systems that are localized, that are customized for the environment here by making use of those technologies. So just learn to use them.
I have a last question for you. We often talk about trade in terms of goods, and we know that services is very important. And you've been involved in conferences and discussions with people about services, such as creative industries or other ones. Do you have any advice on how AI can help? Should they be afraid of it? Are they going to be replaced? How could services work for people in different sectors in the world of services?
It's definitely going to be transformative. I think the thing to do is to learn as quickly as possible how to use those technologies. I was having a conversation just before I came here back in New York where an artist, an oil painting artist, was showing how they were partnering with an AI engineer to ingest the artwork they were producing in oils and then combine it and reinterpret it in ways that produce great new artwork. And I think for anyone who is sort of in services, the question is this: how do I use the existing new AI to amplify the offering that I have so that it's a combination of the human service and augmentation by the AI to produce a better service?
Okay, thank you.